Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. We get curious about all things gender, sex, and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, mental health and kink, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. Come with us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I identify as a cisgender woman, and my pronouns are she and her. In this episode, I'm speaking to Hannah Watson. Hannah's pronouns are she and her, and she doesn't mind they or them. She is transgender, and although not fond of labels, the terms non-binary and asexual semi-resonate with her as well. Find out what that means to Hannah in this episode. We also talk about gender identity versus biology versus sexuality, to what degree gender defines you, why the term gender confirmation surgery is a better one than gender reassignment surgery and sex change, conforming to society's norms, and unconventional types of love, attraction, intimacy, and relationships. It was recorded on the 27th of November 2020. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
Hi, my name's Hannah.
Welcome, Hannah. And how do you identify?
Well, that's a tricky one off the bat, really, because I'm not as fond of labels, as it were. I could say that I'm trans. I use she, her pronouns. So, that's probably the most obvious, obvious. It's the most
accurate.
The thing that I would most want to get across to someone is, how to refer to me. But then again, I don't mind they, them either. I'm not too fussed. I identify as largely female, as a woman, I guess. It's a thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a trans woman. That could be just the easiest thing to say, but it's often, I find, more complicated than that, because it's about what that actually means to me, rather than being I think the trouble I have with labels is that it can mean one thing to someone and one thing to someone else, and
totally.
It's like, yes, I have a degree of something innate to me that I would call femininity, or a feminine identity, rather than a feminine presentation. But it's not really something that I would just use to describe the whole of me. But yeah, I would, if the most thing that I would say is yeah, she, her, or they, them pronouns is good for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say what it means to you. So would you like to sort of dive into that a bit deeper?
Yeah, I feel that I have, and I don't want to say that I'm 100% female, because I feel that gender can be a kind of, it's something that you take for yourself. It can be a word that's defined by society as oh yeah, you can be a woman if you do these things, this. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's it's an innate part of your identity. It's something that you have, that you define for yourself. It's an aspect that you define for yourself. I have loads of other things that I have. I like biology. I like gardening, origami, and all this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, and I'm also majority female. It's just another thing. And I say majority because my connection to gender, as it were, isn't as comparably strong as a lot of people that I know, and that within myself I'm well, I don't connect as much with the concept of gender that I have inside me that other people do. And a lot of people define themselves a lot by gender. And I feel I have a connection to gender. It's something that I wouldn't say that I have no gender, but I don't feel that it shapes me as much, or that it's another aspect of myself. I see it as another aspect of myself. A lot of it's very easy, especially for me, with being trans and all, that I can get very much all that gender can be very much all encompassing. That I have basically been on this 7-8 year I don't. The journey is cliched, but it's kind of like a journey, a 7 or 8 year kind of thing to claim what I to adjust my body to what I believe that is right for my identity, and.
Mhm.
And then I come out and say, well, I don't really have that much connection to gender. It seems a bit silly, but it's like I've gone through life changing surgery, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have much connection to gender. But it is strange to look back on, but it's not the entirety of me, and I feel that I criticize people. I criticize people for like always opening with like, what kind of job do you do? Because I feel more disconnected to that than I do to my gender, obviously. But like, I feel it's another thing that's like, well, just because I say I'm female, that what does that mean? What do you take from that? Like, if I'm talking to someone and they clock me as female, or they say that I'm female, like, what does that mean to them? Like, and it's strange. It's like, no, gender. This gender is mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. I had a conversation with Rachel. She was saying a similar thing, like gender is just part of your identity, and for her it was also like just a minor part, I suppose. And if I look at it from like my perspective as a cisgender person, like my gender is, well, it is just a small part of who I am. It's
Yeah,
just one element, right? So in a way that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel that I experienced. I've had bad experiences with gender. Like, I feel that the effect of the most that I felt gender is through the mismatch of, and through the feelings of dysphoria of, because I have because I have a gender identity. I can then look at my body and see that does not reflect this gender identity, and that I'm putting myself out there, and like my outside doesn't match my inside, and that has caused quite a lot of distress in the past. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's strange because a lot of people sometimes say, like, well, how do you know how do you know you're a woman? How do you know you're a man? How do you know? And I always say, well, if someone took your brain out of your body and put you in a robot, or put you in a completely different body, you would still know that you're you. You would still be you.
Mm.
And it was almost like that had already been done. I already felt like this body isn't right. It's not. It's not mine. It's just the body. And through receiving hormones and having surgery, that I was able to change the body into something that I could call mine, and reclaim that. And that has been a kind of gender struggle that has really helped me to say that, well, yeah, I kind of, looking back, I kind of do have a gender, because that's, or multiple, I don't know. It's still a bone of contention, I think, for me, that I could very easily classify myself as non-binary, because I don't really believe that I fit firmly with that. I don't really feel that I fit firmly with the gender binary, but I don't feel it significantly enough to particularly. It's not that I don't have the effort to like go through another kind of coming out or transitional or that kind of thing, but I feel like it's less of a, it's like that's a part of me that is a part of me, and I can acknowledge that for myself, and I don't need the rest of the world to acknowledge that. I'm fine with being called she her. I'm fine with that, because I don't need, I know in myself that that's only part of the story, and I don't need anyone else to know that that's only part of the story. That's fine. Their reality and my reality can be different, but it's fine, because it's how I see myself. And it's easy. It's easier to say that when it's something internal that you've kind of come to terms with, and something that doesn't particularly affect your outside presentation. But when it's something that, when I previously looked in the mirror and thought I looked male, that was a oh god, like,
Mm.
Now I'm not a stranger in my own body anymore, so I can be a bit more. I have a bit more freedom to explore other realms of gender other than ouch, everything is terrible. Um,
Mm. Yeah. See, that makes sense, really. So basically, what you're saying now that you feel like things match up, that it's no longer a big deal.
yeah,
But when you say before that happened, before your well transition, as it were, I suppose that was a big deal.
yeah. It's almost
Yeah.
as if it's like, well, your room's a bit too warm, or your room's a bit too warm, it's making me sweat. Also, I'm on fire. I would probably have to deal with the fact that I'm on fire, and then I could think, well, my room's a bit too warm, but I can handle it. I couldn't handle being on fire.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a silly analogy, but it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally, totally. So do you feel you've always known that you're like, well, you're in the wrong body, I
I
suppose. I
would
think that's
say
what you said,
so.
right?
I would say so. I've always known that. I've always felt like, or at least previously, I've always felt like a stranger. Like I kind of just existed. I didn't really live. I didn't really have like a very young age, even like 4 or 5. I didn't identify with a lot of the things that the boys were doing. I was very enclosed. I didn't make any friends at all. I wasn't very active. And
Mm.
I didn't have the words to describe what I was going through. I didn't know
Mm.
what I didn't have. I'm really grateful that even this was what 10, 15 years ago. Even now, like people growing up now through primary school, secondary school, have no there's awareness of transgender. There's awareness of the fact that just because you have a penis doesn't mean you're a boy, and that's the way it is forever.
Mm.
There's awareness that that's not the case. Back then, there wasn't, and I almost had almost any feeling of, well, I'm in the wrong body was kind of, or wrong body is again is a bit of a cliche, but it's a useful one.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
to kind of try and sum up the feeling of dysphoria, I guess that I went
Mm.
through, and
Yeah.
all those feelings of there's something really horribly wrong here were kind of quashed because I didn't know there was like no way of me knowing how to right that wrong or to look inside myself for that wrong. Everything was just kind of bricked off. So I just shut myself down completely. I was I say I wasn't particularly much of a person. I don't have a lot of memories from back then. I have very occasional like flashes of certain things, but I don't really have a lot of memories from back then. I don't have a lot of good memories at all, and I don't have any friends that I kept from primary school, secondary
Mm.
school. It was very dark, but
Mm.
it was just there was not really. I just focused a lot on like academia and a lot on burying myself in things because I didn't really know what to do. I felt different. I felt odd. I felt off. I felt like everything was there was just everything was missing. There wasn't a me. Everyone else was doing things. They were going through puberty and all that. That never happened to me. They were like, "Oh, you should start to feel these things and these things and these things." No, like I just feel sad because I felt sad yesterday and I feel sad today. Great.
Wow.
But it was and so that's there was always a feeling, and my even my parents asking my parents looking back, they said, oh, there was always something wrong. We always knew that there was something wrong, but we couldn't do anything, and that I felt that's heartbreaking, isn't it? Really, to think about,
Yeah.
like when you know that there's something wrong but you can't do anything, and
Mm.
it's hard. It was harsh, but
Mm.
thankfully after going after leaving school, going to university and all that kind of more open and accepting environment, I actually learned that there was a word for this thing, and then I could actually look at my own thoughts and think, well, this is, I've been trying to hide it from myself, but I always kind of define more towards, I am a woman. I'm not like, it's not like I want to be a woman. It's that I already have this womaniness in myself and I'm stuck, which is a really difficult thing to come to terms with because in the day it was like, oh yeah, do you want to have a sex change? Do you want to become a woman? Like, no, I already have this womany goop inside me, and it's really, really uncomfortable because the outside isn't the same.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that's why they call it gender confirming or
Yes,
confirmation?
yeah,
Gender confirming surgery? What do they
yeah,
call it?
gender. Oh, yeah, it's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Gender
isn't it?
confirmation surgery or something like that
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Instead of like gender adjustment or whatever else they used to call it in the past,
yeah.
yeah, it's about making the outside match the inside. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you started coming across the words for how you were feeling, how did you feel like it took you a long time maybe for you to start expressing in that way? I mean, what was
I
your
feel
what
so.
was
My first kind of experience with it was the fact that I was about 19, and I'd finally like come to this kind of internal conclusion of, well, this is some kind of weird brain thing that I feel that I feel that I define more as a woman, and I'm stuck. Like my brain is doing this thing where I feel like I'm a woman. What, I've got the wrong body. Like I didn't. And it was I did, because I didn't know anything about it. I thought like, oh, have I got a brain tumor? Have I got some kind of developmental condition where
Mm,
there's been like a flush of female? Because I was doing biology at the time, so I was full in with it. I was like, well, what was, I've been like some kind of weird flush of hormones into my brain when I was born. What, is there some weird
mm,
thing? And I looked it up on the NHS website, and that was when I found like transgender was it's like basically just nervously searching to help. I think I'm a woman, male body. And yeah, that was they had like stories and accounts on there of like people that had been through the actual full transition, as it were. Again, that's a bit of a bad statement, because it's like, you could be trans and not go through any surgery or whatever, but
mhm,
obviously the NHS was more geared towards like the medical side, so they had people's accounts who had actually been to Leeds Gender Clinic and gone through the process, and that was just like, well, this is what I've been feeling. Oh God, there's a word for this, and it was a little bit frightening, but it was liberating. It was really
mm,
like someone had actually, or like this humble website had actually finally given me hope that there will be a future for me, because before I never really saw a future for myself. I never really saw I just said, well, I'm just gonna muddle through life and be sad all the time. I never really saw anything that could possibly exist outside of my isolated bubble. And
mm,
for the first time I was like, well, I can actually, it's got a word. That means I can do something about this. And that was basically what I said to myself was, we could do this. This is a thing. This is recognized. We could
mm,
do this. And that was it was life changing. It was very liberating it was a bit scary, but it was, I think for the first time it was like I was actually got that excitement of like, oh, this is scary, but it's something that's something that we could do. It's something that I could do. um
mm. Yeah. So what's been the most surprising thing about transitioning, would you say?
hmm I think that surprised me. I think how much, like, looking back, how the biggest surprise is how much I've changed, and not just from like physically but mentally. How much good it's done for me.
Mm,
And it kind of started when I started getting hormones, really, and that just really just lines your brain up. It just makes. I was always like, once I'd found out, I was always nervous about things like, oh my God, my chest hair, my chin hair is growing, my hair's going to recede. I was frightened about these changes that were happening to me. And I've always, through childhood, was always just this insular person that was just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. And then
wow.
when this when I started, actually getting treatment, I was like, well, this my body is now at a point of peace. It's the things aren't getting worse. It's in balance, and it did feel like a kind of sense of balance. And I started actually living instead of just existing, and I have changed so much. I am so much more out there. I'm so much more outspoken. I'm so much more extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
I never was like that before. I never existed before. I never really, I never really I don't really had any friends, and now I'm just like, or at least before COVID, I was out, going around the country, around, seeing friends all over the place, Sweden, the Netherlands, everywhere I could get
Mm-hmm.
to, because I had this kind of love for life, really. Yeah, but my life is sometimes a bit of I liken it to a roller coaster ride with bits of the track missing, because sometimes that's what it feels like. But
Yeah.
I I I feel a lot of solace, a lot of energy from doing things and going out and embracing the world that I never had before. And I think that's the most shocking thing looking back is the fact that how much I've changed,
Mm.
just as a result of being able to be myself more.
That's amazing. So, what's something you wish cisgender people knew?
Oh, something I wish. I think so. A lot of people, a lot of things that are shown in the media, and a lot of things that are kind of shown in like television and stuff. It's like there's a lot of this focus on, like, you've got to know all the words. You've got to respect me because I'm trans. You got to know all the words, and it's not about that. It's about having empathy, and
Mm.
things like, or at least that's what it is to me. Like,
Mm.
they're just like, oh, you want all this stuff because you're this. It's like, no, I literally, but it's harder to ask that. It's often harder to ask people for basic empathy than it is to, like, respect the immensity of my struggle. It's easier to say, look at how terrible things are for me. It's harder to say, well, just empathize. And I think that's the thing. It's about, you see a trans person, you see a person that is presenting maybe differently to the norm. That's still a person. They are
Mm.
a living person, and as a to that person, I'm talking to that person as them as a cis person will have had so much thrown at them about how they should conform to the norm, how they should be how they should be a good wage slave and go work for some businessman, and hate everything that's not normal, because that just keeps the world grinding away as it normally is and conforming to the status quo and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm.
but actually, shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be about being a nothing person and grinding yourself away. It should be about looking at that person over there that's wearing the full, like, I don't know, whatever outfit they're wearing, or that person over there that's grasping the hold of their identity, and saying, good on you. We like to have that difference in the world. That difference in the world adds spice to life. And, like, I don't want a red carpet everywhere I go. I just want people to, one, empathize with me, because I have been through a lot. I have still got issues I need to work through because of everything that's happened before. And
Mm.
two, to not believe the it's the thing is that don't believe his lies. Don't believe what you read in the media about trans people trying to steal your gender and devouring it, or sacrificing your gender to awaken the elder gods. I don't know what stuff the newspapers put out sometimes, but we're gonna go into John Lewis and we're gonna burn all of the girls' clothes. No, we're not like that. We just want to live and have basic human rights, okay? And we still don't have that. So just empathize with us a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing I want to get across. We are not a threat.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
Very
totally.
easy thing for bigots and people that want to spread hate for whatever reason. Some people aren't even bigoted. They just want to spread hate because it sells newspapers. But
That's right.
but a very easy thing is like, this person is a threat to you and your family. Is they always use the family card as well often. If you look at some of the headlines, they always use the family card. Trans people are a threat to you and your family somehow by, I don't know, burning your girl's clothes or something. But no, we're not a threat. This is a ruse. Do not be bruised.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you see the things that some people come up with, you just want to go up to them and shake them and just be like, no, how could you believe that?
Right. Yeah, totally. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about you?
Anything else I'd like to say about me? Or
Yeah.
I think it's worth, on the topic of like gender and sexuality and things, I think it's worth mentioning that there is a lot. Sometimes I found with talking to people that people seem to equate gender and sexuality in a way that isn't really there. So and I think my story is quite interesting on this because I never really experienced attraction towards anyone when I was pre-transition, I'll call it. But when I wasn't aware of who I was, I also wasn't really. I didn't really. How could anyone love me? There wasn't a me.
Right.
And
yeah.
so I wasn't really attracted to anyone. But then when I fully came out and when I was like pre-transition, I was never really attracted to anyone. But like since being able to be myself and claim my kind of identity, I first have just purely identified as lesbian. I was only attracted to kind of, I mean, I say lesbian is really, again, that's another label, isn't it? There's another term that I say, like trans, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And to me, it's I sometimes use lesbian, I sometimes use sapphic, and it's just kind of me trying to categorize how my brain experiences attraction and attraction towards a female aspect of identity, I guess. And that can be non-binary people that are more, female leaning, and that can be, people that I identify as female, cis or trans or whatever. And I mean, it seems rude to say, well, it's just not men, isn't it? But like, it's like not men, not aspects of masculinity. I wouldn't be comfortable being in a romantic relationship with a trans man or a cis man, really. So it's not really anything to do with, genitalia or anything. And so that was my kind of first revelation. And my second revelation was really that sex isn't particularly much to me. Like even pre-op, it was just not a thing anyway. I was not comfortable with that region. That wasn't happening. And post-surgery, I was just like, well, yes, there are other ways to experience intimacy and closeness and intense physical feelings with people without putting slot A in slot B. And yeah, that is quite a defining part of myself. But that also goes back to the kind of sexuality versus gender thing. It's like, well, just because I'm a trans woman doesn't mean like I'm attracted to men or attracted to women or anything. It's like you can be trans and have any sexuality that there is. Those two are separate aspects of a person and aspects of their identity and who they're attracted to and things like that. So that's another thing that I always like to jam in there when I can is kind of it's the whole sexuality and gender thing.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
I can be asexual but still be romantic with someone and still be very close and very cuddly and stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's a very undervalued thing in society because it's all about, what the relationship should look like, with all these rules around it.
It always has to be the relationship as well. You can't,
right?
You have this kind of strange, persistent philosophy that you have to find your one forever person and be with them for the rest of your life and not be with anyone else ever, even though there's like, what, 7 billion people on the planet. Actually, that's kind of depressing that there are 7 billion people on the planet as an environmentalist, but whatever. But yeah, you then just can't, you're not allowed to love anyone else. Also, like, you're not allowed to love your friends because what's that? And it's like, hang on a minute here. There are lots of different types of love, and also,
Yeah.
well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, some people it works. Some people it works. You know, they can meet someone and never and want to, you know, spend the rest of their life with them and never fall for anyone else. But some people it doesn't work, and that's, and again, I go back to me saying that's a fun thing that brings spice to life. That's a thing that they're just gonna, we're just gonna do our own thing, and you do your own thing, and we're just gonna let each other be. You know, that's
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
recognize that we've come a long way to be here, and let us be.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to devalue. I mean, one is not more.
One is not more
important
superior than the other.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that one is very much preached as if it's the only thing, and it's actually, well, no, there are alternatives out there. You know, you be yourself. You know, it seems cliche, but you can only be, you know, at the end of the day, the person that you have to live with 100% of the time is you. So you might as well be true to yourself, even if you're not true to other people. You know, even if you hide it away, you know, be true to yourself. You know, you can't trick yourself. You're you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So you mentioned the word asexual. So is that something that resonates with you?
That is something that semi resonates with me. As I say, it's there are also different degrees of asexuality. There are different degrees of like either being not interested in sex, being sex repulsed, being not interested in intimacy, not being interested in sensuality. I use sensuality very differently to I use, so like, I'm not interested in sexuality, but I'm interested in sensuality, which is subtly different. You know, sensation doesn't have to be, you know,
Sexual.
sex sensation,
Yeah,
but it can be experienced in a similar way almost with someone you're close to. You know, I mean, I don't need to get into I don't need to get into all the graphic details, but then again, this podcast is called 50 Shades of Gender.
right.
But I can experience intimacy with someone through non-sexual sensual things, and also take pleasure in sensual things myself, but not like particularly sexual things. I don't look at someone and think, that person's hot, I want to have sex with them, or that person's hot, I want to, you know, do whatever, this and that. I don't know, because I can't really process that, because I've never felt it before. But I can look at someone and think they are aesthetically beautiful, but not like I want to hold that person or whatever. I just think like, oh wow, that dress looks really good on her, or, you know, that really emphasizes, you know, that's just artistically beautiful, you know, their outfit or their body language or something, that some aspects about them, even their personality, is like, well, they are a beautiful person, and without feeling particularly sexual attraction, as it were, towards them. And I still feel romantic attraction towards people. So I still feel like when I get very close to someone, sometimes it's like, I would like to do things that would be normally categorized as romantic with that person. Sometimes it can be, I could do romantic things with non-romantic, but this is confusing, but like, you know, you can have dates with friends. I can have dates with friends. That's what I'm saying, getting out really here. Like, you can have like a go out for dinner and watch a movie or something with a close friend, and it's kind of has that kind of romantic vibe, but you're not in a relationship. And I say that asexuality is like one of the ways that I can kind of label myself that expresses that difference, but like that kind of style of mindset, style of thought, that style of attraction that allows me to kind of, one, meet others like me, and two, express that to people quite quickly. I've taken what, half an hour to do, 15 minutes to describe this. Whereas if it's just someone you meet on the street, yeah, I'm asexual. That's just very easy to rattle that off. And
Yeah. Well, again, it's like it's another label that means different things to different
it
people, isn't
is,
it?
yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna say someone else can't use that label. I don't own that label. There are issues. There's been issues with people saying like, oh, bisexual people can't be lesbians. And it's like, what? No, of course they can. You can't
Mm,
just say that because you're a lesbian, you now own the word lesbian and can deny other people from using it. What the heck? No, that's an
right.
aspect of someone's identity that they can claim if they fucking want to.
That's right. Yeah. I love it. Oh, that's been so brilliant. I love talking to you about all this stuff. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? Is there any
Um,
last thoughts you want to leave us with?
no, I think
Covered a
I've
lot.
covered
Yeah.
a lot, and I hope that I've managed to remain respectful and
Hmm.
remain not not too controversial, maybe a bit controversial. I always like being a little bit controversial, and
What's
that
wrong with
that that some that people get something from this, and like basically thank you to all the lovely people out there that have listened to this and listened to my views and my strange ways of describing things sometimes.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you very much.
You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/Hannah with an H, where you can also read the transcript. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com and on social media. If you'd like to support us, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Plans start from only $1 a month. Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender for more details. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open-minded.